Good morning, Shania. We're going to start in about 5 minutes. I'm just waiting for a few more people to join. Make sure when you sign in that you put your name in the comment box. Hi, Kaylee. Hi, Sky. I'm going to start at 10:05. I'm just waiting for more people to join. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Last week, we learned about fractions and exactly what they were and how they worked. And today, we're going to further our lesson about fractions. We're going to talk about the value of fractions. Now, these are some of the vocabulary words that we're going to need to know today before we start. We already went over some of them last time, but the first word is value. Does anybody want to guess what the word value means? Does anybody know? What does the word value mean when it comes to math? If you could put it in the comment box. What does value mean? Okay. Value is basically how much something is worth. And today we're going to be talking about the value of fractions, because sometimes in fractions, even though the numbers in one fraction may be smaller, it still may be more than a fraction with larger numbers. So the other vocabulary word is numerator. You guys remember what numerator is? This is what a fraction looks like. Now, which number would be the numerator? Can somebody tell me which number would be the numerator in this fraction? Can somebody put in the comment box which number out of these would be the numerator? One, good. One is the numerator. And the 3 on the bottom, what is that called? We already got numerator, but we want to know what the 3 on the bottom, what is that called? You've got your numerator and your denominator. Yes, I see what you were trying to say. So you've got your numerator and your denominator. Good. And the last word is model. We went over fraction models last time. What is a fraction model? Can somebody tell me what a fraction model is? Okay. A model is when it comes to fractions, it's basically a picture to help you understand the fraction. So if I say 1/3, the model will look like this. This is a model. A model for 1/3. So remember, the numerator first value, the first word was value, and value is basically how much something is worth. The second word was numerator, and that's the top number of a fraction. And then denominator is the bottom number of a fraction. And then you have model, which is a picture that helps you demonstrate a fraction. A fraction model is just it's a picture that shows you, that's able to show you what they're saying as a visual. So now we're going to talk about the actual value of fractions. Now, we've got 1/2 and 2/3. Can somebody tell me which one of these fractions they think is worth more? Which one of these fractions do you think is worth more? Put it in the comment box. Do you think 2/3 is bigger or 1/2 is bigger? Which fraction do you think is larger? That's 2/3, Shania. Okay. Now, this is where a lot of people get confused. Now, just because these numbers are bigger does not mean it's a bigger fraction. Let me show you why. Here we have two circles that are the same size, right? Now I'm gonna use the thing we learned last time to create a fraction model for both. These are the same size circles. Not really, but let's just pretend. These are the same size circle. I'm gonna break this one up in 2 because that's what the denominator tells me. And I'm gonna break this one up into 3. Now, I get 1/2 here, and then 2/3 here. So good, Shania. You are correct. You see how more is shaded in 2/3 than there is in 1/2? That means that this is the larger fraction. Now let me show you an example where the numbers are larger, but the fractions is smaller than the other. So let's do 1/6 and do 4/16. Now, which one of these do you think is larger? Put it in the comment box. 1/2 or 3/8? Which one do you think is larger? Tell me in the comment box. Which fraction do you think is larger? Now, even though 3/8 has bigger numbers than 1/2, the 1/2 is larger. And let me show you why. I'm going to create a model. So whenever you're working with fractions and they're asking you which one is larger and you can't really tell just by looking at it, you should create a model. So I'm going to create 2 models to demonstrate the value of both of these fractions. Now remember, I'm drawing the same size circle. I'm going to break this one up only into 2. But this one is going to be broken up into 8 because that's what the denominator says. Now I'm going to color. I'm going to shade in what the numerator tells me to. Now look at these. These numbers are larger. But when you look at the model, you can see that let's imagine this as a pizza. You can either get a full half of the pizza or you can just get 3 slices of the pizza. And according to the model, the half is larger. But you wouldn't be able to see that unless you actually made the model. So now you know that 1/2 is actually larger than 3/8, even though the numbers in 3/8 are bigger. Let's do one more. We have okay. we have 6 over 7 and 2 over 3. So we have 6 over 7 and 2 over 3. So step 1 is to draw our models. Same size circle. I'm going to break this one into 3 because that's what my denominator tells me. And I'm going to break this one into 7 because that's what my denominator tells me. Now here I have 7, and I'm going to color in 6. And for this one, I'm going to color in 2. Now it may be a little hard to see because my circles are messy, but the one that you see that's filled the most is 6 over 7. So that would be the largest fraction. Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment box. Now, another way that we use that we find out what the value, how the values of fractions are related is by using a number line. Now, this is what a number line when you're doing fractions will look like. It's always going to be in between 0 and 1. Because a fraction, remember, is a piece of a whole. So if you see a fraction, that means it's smaller than 1. Okay. From 0 to 1, we can break this up. We're going to use 4. So 1, 2, 3, and we've got 4 here. Now, if I want to represent the number, however many of these you see, that's going to be your denominator. So based off of how many ticks I have here, my denominator, I know for sure, is going to be 4. Okay? Based off of how many ticks are are here from the 0 to the 1, that's how I know what the denominator is. So if I have 5 here, then the denominator would be 5. But I have 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry. You don't count 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do not count the 0. Only count from the next tag mark. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And that means my denominator is going to be 4. Now, let's say they ask me, which number is larger? Which fraction is larger? 2/4 or 1/4? Now, some of you may be able to figure it out just by looking at it. But if not, there's a way to use the number line to fix it. Now, the numerator tells you what number tick you're going to put your fraction on. So if you see 2/4, that means you're going to go over 1, 2. And this is your 2/4 line. And then 1/4 means you're going to mark it at the 1 spot, at the first tick mark. So you've got, let me write it where it's supposed to go. This point on a number line represents 1/4. And this point represents 2/4. Now, to figure out which one is bigger, what you will be looking for is which point is closer to 1. And the point closer to 1 would be 2/4. So that means that that's the greater fraction. So we're going to do one more, but this time we're going to change the amount of tick marks. Remember, you start at 0. And you go to 1. Like this. This is always how you start when you're plotting a fraction on a number line. When you're putting a fraction on a number line, it's always in between 0 and 1. So we're going to do 6 tick marks. So remember, you start after the 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 6th one is already there on the 1. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means my denominator is going to be 6. So now I know my denominator has to be 6 because I have 6 ticks after the 0. Okay. So let's say they ask you, which one is larger? (3/6) or 5/6? Now, sometimes you can just use your eyes and you can figure it out by looking at it. But they may ask you, even though you can see it, to put it on a number line. And this is how you would do it. Remember, the numerator tells us how many ticks we're going to go over from 0 to plot that fraction. So this is 3/6. So I'm going to go over 1. Remember, start after the 0. 1, 2, 3. And this is going to give me 3. And this is 3/6. So I went to the 3rd tick mark out of the 6. And that made 3/6. And now I'm going to plot the other one, 5/6. And that's going to go on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now, looking at the number line, you can see that 5/6 is the number closest to 1, so it is the larger fraction. Well, thank you guys for joining in for the lesson today. For my little people, I'll be starting the big kids lesson in about 4 minutes. If anybody has any questions or comments, you can put it in the comment box. I'm going to go get some things to get ready for 3 through 8's lesson. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to start in about 1 minute. For my big kids, today we are going to be learning how to divide fractions. Did we do multiplication? We can do division and multiplication today. Last time we did addition, and I'll briefly go over subtracting fractions. Hi, Kingston. Okay, now for addition and subtraction, a very important word that you should know is common denominator. Common denominator. Now we know that the denominator is the number that goes on the bottom of a fraction. And when you're adding or subtracting fractions, they have to be equal. So you cannot You cannot add something just like this. In order to add this, you have to make both of these numbers on the bottom the same number. Now for this one, you can, to get 3, you can either make 3 into 6 or 6 into 3. I'm going to make 3 into 6 because that's the easier way. So what I have to do, remember, I need this number to match this number. So I have to figure out 3 times what is going to give me 6. Kingston, do you know 3 times what will give me 6? Three times 2 will give me 6. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So if I multiply the bottom by 2, I have to multiply the top by 2. Yes, good, Kingston. 3 times 2. And that'll give me 2 over 6. So now I can replace that fraction and solve the problem. And that'll give me 4 over 12. And that's your answer. So see what I did there? Now I'm going to show you a subtraction problem. This is all about, you have to find the common denominator. So now we're going to do a subtraction problem. So here we have 4 over 6 minus 1/2. Now the first thing I have to do is find the common denominator. So I can either make this 6 a 2, or I can turn this 2 into a 6. I'm going to turn this 2 into a 6 because that makes it easier. So here I have 1/2, and I have to times this 2 by something to get 6. And we already did 2 times 3. So now we know 3 times 2. So now we know we can do 2 times 3. Now remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top, and vice versa. So if I'm multiplying the bottom by 3, the top also has to be multiplied by 3. And that'll give me the fraction 3 over 6. So now I can replace this 1/2 with the 3 over 6 I have. Now, when you are subtracting, you do not add the bottom. You do not add the denominator. Okay? When you're adding and subtracting, don't add the denominator. You're only doing the top. You're only subtracting the top. So you're going to do 4 take away 3 is 1. And the 6 stays the same all the way through, okay? I'm going to give another subtraction problem. I'm going to let you try it. Now we have 6 over 10 minus 1/2. I want you to try and solve it. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So at 10:40, I'll give the answer. 6/10 minus 1/2. Remember, you have to make the denominators common first. Okay, you guys, has anybody made any progress? We're doing 6/10 minus 1/2. I'm going to give you the first part, and then I'll let you solve it. Now I either have to turn this 10 to a 2 or this 2 to a 10. I'm going to do the 2 to a 10 because it's less complicated. So I have 1/2, and I need to get to 10. What can I multiply 2 by to get to 10? Tell me in the comment box, what can I multiply 2 by to get to 10? Two times what will give me 10? Two times 5 will give you 10. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top, and vice versa. So 1/2 turns into 5/10. So now I'm going to replace it in the problem with the new fraction and solve. Now remember, when you're subtracting or adding, you do not add the denominator or subtract the denominator. So we're only doing the top. 6 minus 5 is 1. And then we're going to bring the 10 over. Just like that. I'm going to do one more multiplication, and then we're going to move forward to division. Which division I think is much easier. So we're going to do Now I'm going to do 5 over 9 minus 1/3. Step 1, find the common denominator. So either I would have to turn this 3 into a 9 or this 9 into a 3. But I can't turn the 9 into a 3 because 5 is not divisible by 3. So I'm going to have to turn the 3 into a 9. Now I have to get this 3 to a 9. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So 3 times 3 will give me 9. So I'm doing the same thing to the top and the bottom. I multiply the bottom by 3, so I multiply the top by 3. And now we've got 3 over 9. So now I'm going to replace the 1/3 in the original problem, and I'm going to subtract. So now we've got 5 over 9 minus 3 over 9. Remember, you do not subtract the bottom, only the top. You just carry over the denominator. Kingston, can you tell me the answer to this problem? 5 over 9 minus 3 over 9. Five over 9 minus 2 over 9. The answer is going to be 5 take away 3 is 2. Carry over the 9. And the answer is 2/9. So now I'm going to move on to division. Well, multiplication first, and then we'll do division. I think multiplication and division are easier than adding and subtracting because you don't have to change the denominators. So if you have a problem like this, you don't have to make these the same. Only in multiplication and division. Whenever you're adding and subtracting, you have to have a common denominator. But if it's multiplication or division, you do not. So I can just multiply across. So 2 times 4 is going to give me 8. And 3 times 6 is going to give me 18. And that's my final answer. So very simple. I'll do one more. We got 5 over 6 times 3 over 5. Because it's multiplication, I don't have to make the denominators common. I can leave them different. I'm just going to multiply across. So 5 times 3 is going to give me 15. And 6 times 5 is going to give me 30. And that's your answer. Now we'll get into simplifying the fractions next week. Hold on, Miss Burt's is calling. So you just multiply across. So remember, adding and subtracting, you must have common denominators. But multiplying and dividing, they can be different and you can still finish. So now I'm going to show you how to do division, which has a little rule, but it's still pretty easy. Now for division, we're going to do this one. I've got 6 over 10 divided by 2 over 3. Now for me to solve this, I'm going to have to do something called the keep, change, flip rule. And this is only for division. You keep the first fraction. You change the division sign to multiplication. And you flip this last fraction upside down. So let me show you what that looks like. So this stays the same. I'm going to rewrite the problem under. This stays the same. You change the division to multiplication. And then you're going to flip this last fraction. So it was 2 over 3. It's going to change to 3 over 2. And then you just multiply it out. So you've got 6 times 3, which will give me 18. And 10 times 2, which is 20. And that's your final answer. See, it's very simple. I'm going to do one more. Now, I know a lot of people didn't get on today, but it'll be available to you after I'm finished. And you can use this to because Ms. Burks is going to give you guys some seesaw work to do based off of what I taught today. So you can use this video to help you. I'm going to do one more division problem. We're going to do now, we are going to follow the keep, change, flip rule. We keep the first fraction. So that stays 4, 7. We keep in this one. So the first fraction you keep, so it comes down just the same. Now you're going to change the division sign, so multiplication sign. And you're going to flip this last fraction. So where it was 1 over 8, it'll become 8 over 1. And now you just multiply. We've got 4, 7 times 8 over 1 now. 7 times 1 will give me 7. And 4 times 8 will give me 32. And your final answer is 32 over 7. That's called an improper fraction, but we'll go over that next week. Okay? So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the comment box. Soon we will be having your Zoom graduation. So be on the lookout for information coming out about that. Make sure you are completing all of your Khan Academy work or your ABC Mouse assessments or your Adapted Minds work because we're still checking. This is the last week, I believe, of school. One more week. We have one more week. Love you and miss you guys. I'll see you next week.